I'll just do a quick introduction. I'm Richard Hooper. I'm the APAC Partner Manager, working with all our partners across this region, and certainly working extensively with the likes of Walker Scott and John on the team there. What I want to do is just give you an overview of who Continia are. We're basically a software ISV that's been around for 20 plus years, working solely around AP automation. So that's where we're really focused on. Last week, obviously, we saw document capture. This week, obviously, expense management. Basically, our products are there to help reduce risks in processing and automate and let the process really flow through from receiving documents in, whether it's actually an AP document, but in this case, an expense document coming through, the whole process to approvals. The great thing with our software is 100% built inside Business Central, so it takes away the need to actually do import and export from external systems. So built within the same system. So the things that you're familiar with within Business Central can resonate within expense management. Now, with Continia, say we've been around for a number of years, 20 plus years. We've got offices right around the world, and we have a number of main solutions. We've got 5 main solutions, but only 3 that we sell in this region, which we'll talk about shortly. And we have in excess of 26,000 installations across 18,000 customers across the globe. So very well established product. And to back that, we have over 140 staff who are involved in the business. Majority of those staff, and I can probably say close to 90% of those are actually in their R&D and development side, and then the rest obviously in sales and marketing and admin. And our product's supported by 1,400 partners worldwide. So there's a huge amount of network partners that we have who support and deliver and implement the products, such as Walker Scott. So as I mentioned, we have a number of products. The main products in this region are the document capture, expense management, and Richard's going to take us through a presentation of that very shortly. And then we have document output. We also, obviously, as any software development company, we're always adding new functionality and new features into the product. So we hear a lot about AI, and I think Richard will talk about some of the AI components that we have in the product. We also talk about Copilot and some of the great stuff we're doing around those 2 areas within the product. Apart from that, we also recognize new parts and new segments in the market that may be driven by compliance. And one of those such areas is around sustainability. And this is driven by sustainability, carbon emission reportings that's coming out of Europe. So I understand we're actually doing a session next week on this, and we've actually got one of our experts from Denmark who will be presenting this. So this really goes about capturing all information about upstream activities and downstream activities, which all goes to conclusion of reporting in Scope 1 and Scope 2 reports, which is all based on your emission factors for different regions. And for New Zealand, we're actually working with the New Zealand government and agency around what those emission factors are locally. So we'll have more on that next week, but it's a really exciting area that we're working in and will help you with those carbon reporting. So why expense management? So now I'm going to just flick over to Richard, and he will take you through this part of the presentation and actually into the demonstration.
You're on mute, Richard.
Richard, you're on mute.
So can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. And you can see the Y expense management screen. All right. So the reason people implement expense management is really to get rid of all those paper, pieces of paper floating around everywhere. So expenses and then physical documents that they write on, or also maybe using spreadsheets and emailing those around, emailing them to their managers, and then backwards and forwards between managers and expense users and also the finance department. So what expense management allows us to do is submit our expenses on the go. So you can just take a photograph of your expense and submit it. Or if there's been a corporate credit card transaction come through, then you can, the system will push that through out to the phone, and then the user is able to actually just add the receipt to that transaction that's come from the corporate credit card feed. So you can do this from anywhere, and we also send out receipt reminders. So if people have been sent the corporate credit card transaction ready for them to add their receipt to, and then they get reminders to say, look, you really need to complete this. This is still pending with you. So obviously this helps you control your costs. It saves a lot of time and money. You get a real-time overview of employee spending. So as soon as the expenses come through from the credit card company, it's inside Business Central. And you can also easily create travel budgets and mileages. So if you want to plan ahead for trips, you can enter those into the system and get pre-approval of trips or expenses as well. And you can also capture mileages as well. So as Richard said, we are built inside Business Central, so it's much easier for our the finance team to learn to use the system. Very quick to implement because everything is right inside Business Central. So I'm going to talk a little bit about who benefits here, and so we have expense users. So they obviously, as I've already mentioned, they can just take a picture of their receipt, fill out any extra fields. Taking the picture of the receipt actually will scan the receipt and capture data for them. But any extra things that they want to put in there, they can add that and enter into those required fields. For the approver, the approvers can approve either in Business Central or in our web approval portal, and they get a very clear picture. They can see how it's been, what expense type's been used by the user, and also can actually see the receipt while they're approving. And of course, the bookkeeper who's sitting in Business Central gets to see what's going on. They get to see that things are pending the expense user or pending the approver, or are fully approved and ready for posting and ready for payment. Now, I'm just going to go and check my environment. My environment was playing up for me today, my demo environment. So I'm just going to check that that's going to be available, because otherwise I'll just talk more to some of these slides. So let's just make sure I can get in here before I go much further. And if this fires up, then we will definitely do a demo. I just need to make sure that it is running. Otherwise, I'll just talk to my slides. It appears to be coming up okay for me. Come back to that in a moment. So looking at the architecture, there are expense users, and the expense users don't need to be Business Central users. So you can have 1,000 expense users in the system if you like. They can either use the expense app on their phone, or they can use their expense portal if they prefer, maybe old school, they prefer to use a browser either on their laptop or on their PC, their iPad, whatever tablet, they can use the expense portal as well. So yeah, either the expense app or the expense portal for expense users. And then the finance users actually work within BC. So obviously the accounts payable clerk will be monitoring what's going on within Business Central, and they do have to have a Business Central license to do that, because they are actually just a Business Central user. Looking at the flow of the transactions come from corporate credit card feeds into Business Central and flow out to the app so that the users can see them, or to the expense portal so that they can see them. And then when they've added their receipt, they flow back in as an expense back into Business Central. The other things that can flow in are mileages. So if you want to say I traveled from here to here and then back again, you can claim mileage. And you could have, maybe like I've got a motorbike and I've got a diesel vehicle, so I can say which vehicle I used, and I can be reimbursed in different amounts. And also, I mentioned before that you get reminders. If you haven't added your receipts for any of these corporate credit card transactions. You get a reminder about that. Just going to swap again over to my environment, make sure that it's all good here, so that I know that I can do a demo. Yep, that seems to be behaving for me. If a little slow, but that just means I will do a bit of talking. So there we go. So that is the architecture. And the next thing I want to talk about is the expense user and what their experience is. So as an expense user, you can fire up our app, and you can just take a photograph here, of a receipt. And in this case, I've taken a photograph of this receipt where I was buying some coffee and sweets, and I used my MasterCard, and it's picked up the date. So it picks up the date, it picks up the amount, and it picks up the currency. If I had bought from this person before, if it's seen this type of receipt before, it would know that I like to put this to expense type food. And behind the scenes in Business Central, you say that food goes to a particular GL code. So users don't have to work with GL codes, they just know what expense type. So we deliver it with various expense types, such as food, accommodation, travel, flights, taxis, those sorts of things. And then the other thing here is the payment type. So the first time they capture this, they would say, I used my corporate MasterCard for this. And after that, it would remember that because the corporate MasterCard number would be on here, and it would fill that in if it sees the MasterCard number again. So yeah, they simply install the app in iOS or Android. 3 steps, take a photo, say that it was MasterCard, say it was food. So it's 3 easy steps. I mean, in future, it's less than that because it would remember the MasterCard and food. You just take the photograph and submit it. And then you can also see the status in the app. So we'll have a look at that. I've got an emulator for the app that we can have a quick look at. And obviously this leads to quicker reimbursement for them. So as I mentioned, these expense users are not Business Central users. They're just an expense user. The approvers are Business Central users. So they can operate either within Business Central, if they're used to working in Business Central, they like to work in Business Central, but some approvers maybe never need to touch Business Central. Maybe they will just use our web approval portal. The interesting thing about the web approval portal is it's not a separate system. It's not disintegrated from BC. It is just an alternative way of looking at the data in BC. So as soon as you do something in the web approval portal, it is done in Business Central. So there's no interface, there's no secondary database or anything like that. So everything really is truly built inside Business Central, even really this web approval portal, because it is just working with Business Central. So yeah, I've said that before, Business Central team member license is required. And I think that's about $12, $13 New Zealand per month for that type of license, that Business Central license. So the value, obviously we've looked at the various benefits as I've gone through, but you get the correct account posting. So they choose food, or they choose accommodation, they choose something that's obvious in English as the expense type, and in the background that's set up for that user or that group of users to go to the correct GL account. You can also customize it without coding. So if you would like to add a field that you want to capture on your expenses, you can do that, and then you just synchronize that back out to the phones, and then you can make that mandatory, so they have to fill in for maybe food, they have to fill in a particular extra field. So that's totally within your control. No developers required for that. And this will lead to manual registration, no paper receipts hanging around anymore. And also we deliver this integrated company credit card feed. So the BNZ, the ANZ, the ASB, whoever can send through these transactions, and they just appear on the phone for the users to add their receipts to. And we also have statement reconciliation as well. So if you get a credit card statement at the end of the month and you want to just make sure that those transactions all did arrive and that they are all being approved or are with expense users, just to make sure they really are in the system, then you can reconcile at the end of the month. So are there any questions at that point? Have you got anything there, John?
Yep, just looking. Nothing as yet. So yep, just carry on.
Okay. So if there are questions, I mean, and John, if you think it's relevant, and they pop up while I'm talking, just interrupt me. I mean,
Sure.
I'll try and remember to stop, but once I get going,
Sure.
I tend to just keep talking, right?
Yeah.
So this is the normal Business Central Role Center, and I like to use function F11 to get rid of all this nonsense up the top, so that I feel like I'm in a real client. I get a nice clean screen like that. So you should be able to see on here that, this is just a normal role center, but because I've deployed Continia Expense Management, we have these extra queues here in amongst all your other Business Central queues. So prior to this, I did a little bit of preparation, and what I've done is I've imported some transactions which came from MasterCard. So I'm pretending that I have a corporate credit card. I have a corporate credit card for this user who's called Lena, and Lena has gone and bought some food for $79. She's gone and bought some accommodation, and she's gone and bought some hardware. So when these transactions arrived, we were able to pre-code these for Lena to food, accommodation, and hardware based on some of the text which came in with them. So this food one probably said restaurant in it, and the accommodation one maybe said hotel. I'm not sure, maybe the hardware one said hardware, but you can use some logic there to pre-code these. If you don't pre-code them, then Lena would get to code them as to what type of expense they were. If I have a quick look at that expense type, I'm going to have a look at my food. We deliver all of these types of expense types just as standard, just to get you going. You could delete all these and create your own if you wanted to use different names, but most people find these are a really good start. So against this food, what we've said is if I go into setup for the food expense type, then we have said that no matter who the employee is, no matter what group they're part of, this will always go to GL account 8252. So each of these expense types we've set up to go to a different GL code in this Cronus, which is Microsoft's demo database. So really, to get going with this, that's all you'd really need to do. You need to download this. You'd need to download the app onto the phones, go and set your GL codes here, and then set up some users, and you'd be away using this. So we do food with guests, and with food with guests, then on that expense type, we enforce the fact that they have to record who attended. So attendees are required on that one. And we've got hotel and personal and transport and different types of transport as well. And the reason we've got different types of transport is on different types of transport, you may want to capture different fields. So with flights, you might want to capture miles. With taxi, you might want to capture whether it was a diesel or an electric or a petrol and how many kilometers were driven. All of that to feed into the sustainability solution. Again, you could delete all of these and just have travel or taxi or whatever you want in here. But these are all just suggested things that people pay for. So those are the expense types. And so this is the view that the accounts payable clerk gets to see. So the accounts payable clerk knows this is pending and we have no receipts on this, like there's an attachment's missing. So what would happen is that Lena would go into enter in her attachments, and if I just pop over here, I have an emulator. I have a phone emulator here. So if I go to my expense app emulator, I'm pretending to be on a phone. This isn't ideal. It's not 100% real phone. It obviously runs a little bit slower than a normal phone. But it gives us an idea of what this looks like. So you sign on to the app. You can use Microsoft 365 to sign on to the app. And you get a screen like this that says, look, what would you like to do, Lena? Would you like to create a new expense? Would you like to create a new mileage, a new per diem, or a new report? So new expense, that's just, I'd go in there if I was going to create an expense where I needed cash reimbursement. New mileage, I would go in here if I traveled from one place to another and needed the to claim for that mileage. New per diem, if I was being paid for breakfast, lunch, dinner, fixed amounts per day, per diem, maybe for accommodation, then I would go in there and I would say how many nights I was away for, and it would automatically say, oh, well, you want breakfast, lunch, and dinner based on the time you went away and the time you came home and all those sorts of things. And if someone had bought you lunch, you could untick that. And then the final thing on here is this report. So if I want to group my expenses or my mileages, my per diems together, I can create a report. I can create a report for June or for my trip to Auckland. And then I could just collect these things into that report. And the advantage of that for the approver is that they just have one thing to approve. They get to see that whole report. Some people like to use that, and some people really just send in individual expenses, individual mileages, and their approver actually approves one by one. So I don't have anything in my open area here. So what I might do here is I'll just go back from there, come back to my create. What I might do is I'll create I might just make sure I've sent these transactions out to the phone. So if I do synchronize here, so we just have this synchronization running regularly between BC and the phones. So when I come in here, if I want to do a new expense for Lena, then I can click on here, and I've already taken some photographs prior to this, and I've got this photograph here for maybe $5.41. And so I can capture that. And we can see I've got $5.41. I've got coffee and sweets, credit card number XXX1234. So if I select this one, we'll see that it sits up here and it goes scanning. And it's scanned and it's found the $5.41. It's found the New Zealand dollars. And if I scroll up here, it's found a description, put food market in there, but it doesn't yet know what payment type I used for this. So I'm going to tell it that was my cash private card. So I want to be reimbursed for this one. And I'm going to tell it that this was food. So as I mentioned earlier, because it now knows what this invoice looks like, or this receipt looks like, in future, it will stamp food on there for me. And it will also, because it knows that credit card number ending 1234 is my cash private card, it will put that on there for me. So if I was going to add this to a report, I'd do that here, but I'm just going to claim this as an individual expense. So the other thing that I can do while I'm in here is I could claim some mileage. And in this case, we're going to go, say, from 55 Cable Street to maybe to somewhere. Where do I want to go? It's just pick somewhere. So maybe I'm just going to go up to, I don't know, into Murray Street or something like that. So I'm not going very far. Okay, I'm just, sorry, it's hard to control my mouse. So if I say done on that, it calculates I'm only traveling three kilometers there. I'm going to 12A Davis Street. And I can say visit customer. And what would happen here if there were a number of ways of doing that route? It would show me the alternate routes, but this is just a simple one. I'm going from Cable Street up into Davis Street. What I could also do here is if I wanted to say that I was going to go via somewhere else, via Levin or something like that, then I could add a point in there and go via somewhere else. So you can get to describe exactly what mileage you have done. And then when I say to submit that, it does something rather clever. It says, well, that's all very well. You went from 55 Cable Street to Davis Street, but did you come back again? Or did you carry on from Davis Street to somewhere else, and then to somewhere else and somewhere else? So you can keep doing this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send and create a return. So it's going to flip these around for me. It's going to say I went from 12A Davis Street to 55 Cable Street. The route is still, you know, there's only one route there, so I don't need to choose my route. And when I submit this one, again, it's going to ask me, you know, do I want to carry on? And I'll go, no, I'm just going to send that one. Thank you very much. Now, what would happen with my credit card transactions, which have come through from the credit card company? Normally, I'd have a little red button sitting here on open, and for some reason in my demo environment today, I don't have that. But I would click on this open button here, and in here, I'd have a list of those transactions. So these transactions that are sitting here in Business Central that have come through from MasterCard would show up on my phone. And basically, all I then do is select them and add a receipt and submit it, just as I did just now. The other thing to discuss on this page is the per diems. So not many people use per diems. I haven't got this set up in my demo, but in here, I just click on here. I'd say I was away from this date to this date, and I visited this city. So maybe London is more expensive than Sydney, which is more expensive than Christchurch, for example. So, and per different user, you can pay them different per diems as well. So all sorts of levels there based on a matrix of who the users were and who the where they went to as well. With each of these, we can save, we can template them. So if I did that mileage that I just put in very often, I could save that as a template if that was one of my weekly trips, and I could just pull that up very quickly. Same with my expenses, same with reports. And then finally, I can have a look at my history. So everything that's been done or been paid or is pending or is waiting for approval would be in my history on my phone. So I'm going to jump back into Business Central here, and this job to synchronize and pull things off the phones just runs regularly. And what I would normally expect to see here, if my synchronization had worked properly, would be that I would have an additional expense in here, and that expense would be that one that has come in from here, from the user here. So these expenses and mileages should have come through to me. But I'm just going to push something through now. I think I'm going to send this off for approval, even though it hasn't got a attachment's missing. So let me just open this. So I've been tripped up here. I'm sorry, I'm not synchronizing with my phone for some reason today, so I haven't got my extra piece of information in here. But what I can show you is that when things are ready for approval, we have an area in Business Central called Expense Management Approvals, and I will have nothing in here today, but on this screen, what I get to see is a list of all the expenses which are ready for approval, all the comments which are have been made against that. So maybe it's been forwarded to me from someone else, or I've forwarded it on to someone else, or it's been put on hold. You know, whatever has happened to this in the past, maybe I've rejected this. All of those types of things come up in these comments over here. And in the attachment on the right-hand side, I get to see the receipt as well. And the alternative to that, which is also going to be blank for me today, unfortunately, is the web approval portal. So when I log in to the web approval portal, just clear my cache there. I know why I've gone wrong here. I've been working in the wrong environment. So I've got two environments here. So let me just go and sort that out. So I've got two expense management demo environments running here, and I just jumped into the wrong one. So if I go back into my environment here. So now I've got my expenses showing here. So these are my corporate credit card transactions. Sorry about that. Just working in the wrong wrong environment. So this corporate credit card transaction has been fed to me, and all I need to do on this is go and find the receipt for it. So I have a receipt here for Apple Green Hills, and if I was on a real phone, I'd been able to pinch and have a good look at this document. But obviously on my emulator I can't, but I can just see that this is the right document. This is what I want to select. So when I select this, it's now added that attachment to it. And if I send that off for approval, I can submit that, and that will go on through to Business Central. And look, I'll just briefly create my expense there that I did before. So I'm going to do a new expense just to show you how this works. I'm going to do that $5.41, and I'm happy with that. This is exactly what I did before, just in a different environment for a different company. So this is a reimbursement for me. And this is my expense type is going to be food. And as simple as that, I've sent that off to Business Central. So this time around, when I synchronize, what I'm going to see is that some expenses come back into this environment for me. So now when I have a look at my expenses, I can see this new food one here is pending approval with the receipt attached to it. And I can see that one which had the, was from MasterCard, is also here ready for me. So now if I go and have a look at the, let's just see if we can get to that web approval portal. I can't get there, but if I have a look within Business Central at my purchase of my expense approval entries, I can see my transactions that I was talking about here before. I can put comments on these. I can forward them to someone else to approve. I can reject them if I want to, but I can also put them on hold, and that's really useful if I want to ring up Lena and talk to Lena about always spending $5.41 on sweets all the time. Then I could put this on hold, and the accounts payable person would see that this is on hold. But in this case, I'm going to approve these, and so they've gone and they've been approved. And then as the accounts payable person, every now and then you'd come in and you'd have a look at your expenses, and you could filter this, and you can see that these two have been approved. They're bright green. I could filter on those to just my released ones, just using the normal Business Central filtering. And then I could post these. Well, I could actually post batch if I wanted to, but I just post these as individuals. So the MasterCard one that I posted there, there's no reimbursement to be done on that one, but this cash private one, when I post this one, and then I go off to purchase approval entries, payment journals, the standard payment journal. What I can do, I've set Lena up, who was doing this expense claim, as a employee, so I can do suggest employee payments. But if you like, you can set your expense users up as a vendor. So I've done suggest employee payments, and if I do that there, then what I should see is that I owe Lena $5.41, and then I can post that just as normal and process that as a normal payment. So all of those go in as posted expenses. Just like normal Business Central, we got a posted expenses. And if I go and have a look at Lena's food market one, I use find entries. For those of you still on older versions of Nav, we used to call that Navigate, but in Business Central we now call it find entries. And just like normal Business Central, it goes off and finds the transactions. There's employee ledger entries, there's GL entries, GST entries, and the posted expense. So have you got any questions there for me, yep. John?
So one is, does it post automatically, or does the approver control posting and therefore can edit incorrect coding? Yeah,
so the approver, it doesn't post automatically, no. So it needs the approver to approve, and then the accounts payable clerk comes in here and has a look for those which are released. And so it's either pending expense user, pending approver, or released, and it doesn't get posted until they post in here.
Cool. Yeah, another one was how's the costing, but the other Richard is answered. So yeah, so what basically Richard says is costing is based on named users. We also note that active users for a month, and if active users are less than 50% of the named users, you pay less. So yeah. Cool. Any more questions? Anyone? All right. Yep. Continue.
Okay. Well, I think that's about me. Have you got anything else to add, Richard? Richard 2? Other Richard?
No. Just obviously the question around pricing is just reach out to John. John can help you with the actual pricing on that. We do have pricing calculators on our website, but obviously the key thing on this is obviously implementation and services. So reach out to John and the team to get precise pricing on that.
So just another question has just come through. So how does it work with a bank doing direct debiting the payment?
Really just however you work at the moment with working with your vendors and paying people. So, whatever solutions, we don't really go into that area. We handle it right up to the expense and posting it as a payment, but really from there on in, that's whatever you use currently in Business Central or NAV to do that. Yeah. So, with vendors, typically people have already got that, or electronic funds transfer really, isn't it? It's EFT. So,
Yeah, I mean, so what you do have is, I mean, if you've got credit cards, those credit card transactions, there is a link there, and so that just comes, you import that into BC, and that gets then shot off across to the different users. They've got a credit card.
Corporate credit cards, yeah.
Corporate credit cards, yeah. But yeah, when it comes to your EFT payments, it's pretty much the same process you would follow now, which is, you're creating your payment journal, you run your payment through, that generates a file, and then you upload that to your bank. So nothing like that would change. It just follow that same process. Yeah. Cool. Yep. So just to bank does. So the same bank does direct debiting. Sorry, you might need to elaborate a little bit on that. Credit card. Yes, so what happens is if you've got corporate credit cards, you effectively log that credit card through expense management, and you actually assign it to a user. And those credit card statements come through directly into Business Central. And then you can, whoever's got those corporate cards, you distribute those card ledgers to the users, and then they use the app to then apply their receipts to those transactions, and then post it in the system. So yeah.
And then at the other end, I guess there is the as normal with a credit card company, they'll often take payment automatically from your bank account, but that doesn't, for the entire corporate credit card. So if a user has spent $1,500 on their corporate credit card, then the bank takes payment for that, and that's just we don't work in that area at all. That's just the way that would normally happen now. You'd handle that probably through your normal bank reconciliation. You'd see that transaction go through your BC bank transaction, the BC bank reconciliation.
Yeah, so we don't, I guess, we don't have like Xero, we don't have a direct bank feed like you'd see to do your reconciliations in Business Central as yet. But in terms of the credit cards, they do work. You do get those transactions through. So there is no direct bank link yet in Business Central. Yeah.
And just to add to that, we work with all the major credit cards. So we work with Visa, MasterCard, and also Amex as well. So we have all those feeds coming into expense management.
Yeah. Yeah, the licensing, I don't know if you guys want to just go through some of the licensing with everyone.
Sure.
Yeah, that might be good.
So if I just bring up, so all of our documentation is online. So if you go to docs.continia, you can see everything about us, whether it's document capture or expense management, document output, but all our pricing is also online. So if I go to continue pricing, then that pops up there, and you can go through and do your own pricing, but we'll just do a sample one here. So let me see if I've got a New Zealand dollar pricing. I can start the calculator. I can say I'm going to work in the cloud. I'm going to go to next. I'm going to work with expense management. And then maybe I have, I don't know, maybe I've got 100 users, and maybe only 20 of them actually will make a claim per month. So I want to have a credit card feed for them. They're not going to use mileage. We don't interface to payroll in Asia Pacific, and we're not going to use per diems. So if I go to the next pricing thing here, you can see for $4.20 per user, you can use our system to process all of these things. So if you think about the amount of time that people spend normally filling in forms, and then accounts payable people working with those, and approvers working with them, $4.20 per user per month is a very good return on investment there. So yeah, that's how that works. But if you have more users per month, then the cost goes up. So we bill the partner, and the partner bills the end customer. So if you have some very quiet months, it's a small bill, and if you have some very busy months, it's a bigger bill. So we keep a note of how many users you have loaded into your system and how many users have actually used it in a month. But any one user can use it as many times as they like. So if a user has used it and they do 20 claims, that's just counts as one user per month. Is that the sort of thing you meant, John?
Yeah, I think it just gives a bit of a I think it's a little bit complicated in that you got these named users and active users, but yeah, if you just look at it that way, if you've got 100 people and 50 of those are actually submitting expenses, then those are charged at a higher rate than the ones that don't. So yeah. There's one question. So is there a way to remove the credit card from users if they are unmatched transactions?
Matched transactions. I mean, we could delete I'm not quite sure what that means.
Yeah, I mean, normally, maybe you just want to expand on that, but normally, so a credit card is assigned to a person, and those transactions will always go against that particular person in Business Central, where you'll then be transferring it across to their app to then apply those receipts. So you shouldn't really have any unmatched transactions unless you're meaning they don't have a receipt. So yeah, just maybe if you just expand on that.
So yeah, if they don't have a receipt, then that can be pushed through by the accounts payable person. They can then say, yeah, this they can submit it. Says, are you sure you want to submit? And they can submit it, but then the accounts payable person gets to see there's no receipt, and also the approver gets to see there's no receipt as well. So yeah, what sometimes happens is people are asked to write on a piece of paper, I declare I did incur this cost on behalf of the company, and take a photograph of that. Or maybe have a standard form that they do that on, if they have lost a receipt. It just depends on people's policies. So, some people say there must always be a receipt, even if it's not a true receipt, there must be some sort of declaration attached.
Yeah. Just another one from Francis saying the expense is a debit in BC P&L, so will it create a double entry? I think Quink's answer to that is no, it won't. But just to further expand, so would you like more? They would like more info on how it actually reports into the GL.
So with this one, if we have a look at the see when this has gone to sleep or not. No, it's still awake. So with the one which was just a straight reimbursement, which is the simple one here. So if I go find entries on there. So what I've got on this one is my GL entries are I mean, it's going to be hitting the food account for sure. I've got a GST entry there as well. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's just my internet's gone slow on me here. Okay, so I've gone to 8252, which is the food and beverage account. I've gone to what's 5625? Oh, sorry, this has gone really slow. This must be the GST account. And then I've gone to 5431. Which is the internal employees. So I guess that's just before payments made, that's gone to 5431. So that's a I guess that's a AP control account.
Yeah, I think maybe for Francis, if you're a bit worried about that, just get in touch, and then we can go through some of the how to sort of hit your transactions in your chart of accounts. But no, it shouldn't double. I'll put it that way.